As you take on these external investors and stakeholders through the various funding rounds, how do you ensure that you remain committed to your core values as Seep?
I love that question, and
Thank you.
It's a really easy answer.
How did that Dragon's Den come about?
Every year I said, no, I can't do it. And then last year I knew that there was a pretty good chance that we would be getting into mainstream retail. And so less than 2% of all capital is deployed to female-founded businesses.
Less than 2%?
Less than 2%.
That is an astonishing figure.
And actually it has gone backwards.
Hello and welcome to Inspired Sounds, Rathbones' exclusive podcast dedicated to supporting and empowering entrepreneurs. In each episode, we dive into the journey of inspirational entrepreneurs and founders who we invite to share the thrills and spills of their own journey. We hope you enjoy listening.
Hello and welcome to Rathbones Inspired Sounds. I'm Elliot Evans, an investment manager here at Rathbones, and I'm here with Laura Harnett of Seep. Hello, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Why don't we start off with what is Seep?
So Seep is Europe's fastest growing plastic-free cleaning tool company. So what do we mean by cleaning tools? That's the sort of washing up sponges. Typically they're kind of green and yellow. They sit on the sort of sink surface or below the sink, and things like sponges and cloths and washing up brushes, that sort of thing.
Okay, and what inspired you to start this business?
So I never ever thought I'd be an entrepreneur. I spent the first kind of 20 odd years in the corporate world, mostly working for kind of consumer and retail businesses. But I'm a consumer like many of us, and so I'm an eco-conscious customer. I like to find better for the planet and better for you products. And I was wandering around my local supermarket one day. And I had lots of lovely kind of B Corp brands in my trolley, and I got to the cleaning aisle, and then I put some Ecover spray, some Method in there, some sort of toxic free washing detergent, recycled toilet paper, and then I went to go and find a cleaning tool, which actually is kind of 50% of what you use for cleaning. And the sort of cleaning tool aisle was just full. It looked like the 1990s basically. It's full of plastic, really kind of naff, old-fashioned branding, and the products themselves were made of plastic. And I just, most people try and hide them away. And so I waited for someone to pitch to me the sort of opportunity in the business because I was an angel investor at the time, and I just thought, God, like why don't I just back myself to do it? And so that was the sort of inspiration to build the first kind of plastic-free alternative for cleaning tools.
So you innovated a solution for yourself almost in that respect.
Yeah, and I think lots of great businesses start that way. You're solving a problem for you, but actually you realise that there's a much bigger audience out there.
So you've got this idea, you've convinced yourself presumably, and at this point it is just you, that there's an opportunity to disrupt the cleaning tools market. What happens next? How do you take it from 0 to 1?
So I'd say I sat on it for a while, just because I think for lots of people that have come from a corporate background, I was in strategy consulting and very safe jobs, paycheck at the end of each month. It's a pretty scary thing to then go, right, I'm going to start from 0, put my savings into it and just take this huge risk, especially a bit later on in life. So I sat on it, I let it kind of dwell and kind of cogitate, and then I called one of my oldest and closest friends, who's our now COO, who was my first commercial accountant that I worked with, and said, I've got this crazy idea for a sort of plastic-free cleaning tool brand. And she was like, that does sound like a crazy idea. But we set ourselves sort of 3 months to do all of the market research, figure out, is there a really good reason why someone else hasn't done it, around the margins. And then I kind of set myself a target to say, look, if I can't find a really good reason why I shouldn't do it, I'm going to just go for it, set the company up and get started. So, and that was so it was COVID at the time, and I had left my role. I was at Selfridges. It was my last kind of corporate role. And it just gave me the time and the space to work on it. And
COVID did.
Yeah, I think COVID did. And so I just thought, I'd just gone also through some health problems. So I'd been treated and diagnosed for breast cancer, and that kind of gives you a new perspective on what you want to do, and you kind of lose the fear. And I think that was, I haven't looked back since.
How has that fear informed, I suppose, how you run the business, and then also the mission of the business as well?
So I think it's had a big impact. So, there's a lot of, I was much more conscious about what I put in my body, what the products I used. I want to make sure that I'm around, for a really long time. So you're just more considered, and there's mounting evidence now around the impact of microplastics on humans. So, one of the sort of scary stats recently is that people are thought to inhale a credit card size worth of microplastics every week. And 0.5% of brain mass when people, when they die and someone's done the sort of autopsy on it, 0.5% of it is made of plastic. And so, for me, it was something that I was really conscious of. And I also wanted to do something that was really great in the world and leave a good legacy, show my kids what to do. And I think it's made an impact then about how I've built it since then. So, I think it's a very different way of operating when you're in a corporate environment, very big teams, very formal in terms of getting sign off for things and writing these endless presentations, and then having to then unlearn some of that and just making decisions, moving really, really fast. And I think going through those health issues has just made me a bit more fearless. I
suppose the eco home movement is on the back of people being more aware of how many processed foods they're eating and drinks, and it's clear that we haven't evolved to be able to ingest those kind of materials that are man-made. Are you finding that people are willing to pay a little bit more because presumably your costs are a little bit more in building these? Otherwise, someone would have done it already, right?
Yeah. So, that's always been a big question about are people prepared to pay the difference? And so, the kind of that classic yellow and green sponge scourer is just really, really cheap to produce, and you can buy slabs of them in Poundland for not very much. And yes, we are more expensive than that. And so part of that early phase was about testing, are people willing to pay more for it? And so, and what we found is sort of very quick market traction to show that people are willing to pay. And so if you look at all of the other categories around this, so things like, so eco-room method and so cleaning and toilet roll, there's evidence that people are willing to pay if it works. So I think people are not prepared to pay more for eco when it falls apart really quickly.
Sure.
And so we've just got Good Housekeeping Institute approved approval for our little sponge scourers.
Congratulations.
And now we've got some really great data on reviews. So we've sold over 1 million of these sponges now. So that tells us that people are coming back.
I suppose, unfortunately, cleaning is one of the things that we all have to do all the time.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, do you have a sort of a particular customer in mind when strategizing for your brands?
Yeah, and so one thing so I don't massively love cleaning, which is quite difficult in a cleaning company, but a cleaning product business. But actually, lots of people love cleaning. We've just done a campaign for spring, which is they've shown the sort of link between actual like mental health and cleaning, and actually people do use it as a way of de-stressing at the end of the day. They like to have a tidy house. At the end of the day, when I've had a tough day at work and then with the kids, actually wiping down the surfaces of the kitchen is like my way of just going. And our core customer, I call her Amelia, from some Amelias that I might happen to know. And so core demographic is 30 to 55 and making sustainable choices for her and potentially her family. And relatively good disposable income, but I'm also really conscious that I don't want to just talk to women because I don't want to conform to the kind of stereotypes that it's always women that do the cleaning. And
Sure.
Actually what we find is women choose which cleaning products to buy, but often it's the men that do the washing up.
So what does the business look like today? Who are your customers? Where do they buy Seep? How many products do you have beyond the Brillo pad?
Yeah, so we have a range of about 15 products. We're sort of doing around £3.5 million of revenue per annum, and we're up over 100% year on year. And actually, we were on Dragon's Den earlier on this year, and so that's made a really big difference. So we're about triple where we were at the beginning of the year. And so we have our website. So I love our website because that means we have a direct line of communication to our customers, so we can find out what they like, what they don't like, share some of the stuff around the impact that we're having. And then we have a part of the business that's through Amazon, and then through retail. So most of the market is in places like Tesco and in Sainsbury's. And so we're at the moment we're in Tesco and Sainsbury's, Booths, Planet Organic, and about 1,000 independents.
So how did that Dragon's Den come about? Was it endless cold emails, or was it the way around? Did they get in touch with you? How did that work?
So it's the other way around. So I think they've got a sort of scouting team that find interesting brands that they think would work well. And we'd had sort of a bit of outreach over a number of years saying, hey, how about coming on Dragon's Den? And I just couldn't think of anything worse than being on Dragon's Den, just kind of completely exposed in front of all those people. And like, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are made to look sometimes pretty sort of foolish. And I think it's watched by 5 million people. So it's quite high risk. And so every year I said, no, I can't do it. And then last year I knew that there was a pretty good chance that we would be getting into mainstream retail, into Ocado and Tesco. And they basically said, look, this is it. This is your last chance to do it. And I put it to the vote to my team and just said, who thinks I should do it? Like, I don't want to do it, but I'm happy to be overruled. And they all decided that that's what I should be doing. And actually it was 100% the right thing to do, but it's the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done, a lot of stressful things, like the behind the scenes. So you go there, go to this kind of place up in Manchester, and then you sit in the green room for quite a long period of time, just waiting. There is no lift. It's actually a fake lift, but they make you walk in and out of it pretending. So actually, and all of this is like hyping you up for the actual real thing. And you have to learn all of it off by heart, pretty much, like your numbers and your pitch.
Sure. It's hard to believe that some people don't remember their numbers, right, going into it, given how many times you must have spoken into the mirror.
But I think fear does something to you and you just forget. Actually, it's a lot of numbers, sort of 4 years worth of your P&L off by heart.
And did you know what they were going to scrutinise? Because they picked up on your gross margins, didn't they?
Yeah, they. So the other thing that you don't realise until you're there is that there's no retakes. So whatever you say, they can use, and then you don't see any of the edit until it airs in front of everybody else. So you have no idea what bit they're going to pick. And so I was in the den for 2 hours, and then our section was about 8 minutes. And so I get contacted quite a lot now about giving feedback or help to the next set of people going into the den. But you don't know what they are going to ask, and what they're looking for is it's TV. That's the thing. That's what you've got to realise. They want good TV moments. They want tears. They want some sort of drama. And the drama that was the sort of focal point of our episode was so Trini was the guest judge, and she had this kind of spat with Tuka. So Tuka, quite a traditional consumer retailer, and then Trini has obviously built Trini London all on her website, on e-com. So she really believes in that as a model, and he doesn't. And so then the natural bit then to include in my episode to build around that was with gross margins and how much we spend on Facebook and Instagram. So it's you can't always control, you can't control the narrative.
I can't believe that it isn't that produced, given what you've just said, and it's surprising given how many people watch it, that you don't get a sort of a put option on I don't want that to go out, or
yeah, you don't get, and I understand why, right? So that's the sort of the risk you take. You're like, I get the opportunity to tell my brand story in front of this many people, but actually the risk is I can't necessarily control what goes out.
But it's paid off.
It's paid off
because you won. If that's the right way.
Yeah,
to describe
I guess.
it.
Yeah, I won. So
and you won 2 dragons.
Yeah.
So how have Deborah and Trini been involved in the business since then?
Yeah, so they were like my absolute dream dragons. So we're a female-founded business. Most of our team's women. A lot of our customers are women, and so I wanted to sort of really strong women backing us, and so Trini, like, a huge online audience, really knows what she's doing when it comes to brand building.
And hot on D2C, as she
really hot on D2C. So she's given me a whole bunch of tips, about recruiting, about how to structure our team. She's just recorded a lot, content for us. We're in her pop-up on King's Road at the moment. So brilliant. And then we get something different with Deborah. She's very generous with her time. She's recorded lots of things for us as well. She's coming to speak to a big team at Tesco on our behalf. And so now it's up to me to keep them interested and involved and know how to work with them.
And as you take on these external investors and stakeholders through the various funding rounds, how do you ensure that you remain committed to your core values as Seep?
I love that question. And
Thank you.
It's a really easy answer. So we're a B Corp. And I don't know if you know what that is, but I can talk to you a little bit because lots of people in the UK don't. So B Corp is it's a group. I mean, I think there's over 10,000 B Corps in the world now, but it's business that believe that business should be about more than just the bottom line, but they have a duty to people and planet as well. And so it was started over 10 years ago by the founders of Patagonia and Ben & Jerry's. They've set sort of incredibly high standards for what it means to be B Corp, and you go through this quite robust certification, and every few years to recertify as B Corp, and then you have to keep measuring that. And for me as a consumer, I look for that on packaging, and for us, that's what was really important. And the reason why it was important is that it does keep me accountable. So you have to, in your kind of founding documents, your articles of association as a B Corp, you have to say that as a director, you are responsible for profit, people and planet. And so kind of we're legally, we have to look at that. And we publish like an impact report every year. And so we take it really quite seriously, but that doesn't mean that we're not building a brilliant business.
So what does that actually entail? Do you mind if I take a
go
sponge?
for it. Yeah.
They presumably will go to the nth degree to scrutinise how this is made, all the way to the start of the supply chain.
Yeah. So they what's interesting about B Corp, and they've just issued even harder standards, but they look across not just the environment, but they look at customers, how you work with customers, how honest you are. Community, your role in the community, the way your governance, so who are you owned by, are you sharing your business, are you sharing a percentage of your business with your employees, are you paying a fair wage, so it goes end to end, and not just environmentally, and basically across all those pillars you then have 30 or different lots of metrics within that to then hit, and so I feel like, so I applied to be a B Corp on the day I opened my bank account for Seep. It was because I wanted to build it from the ground up like that. And so, it's really important.
I mean, you mentioned building out your team a moment ago and getting some advice on that. Has that been difficult or not in building a team with similar values to you, especially as it's your baby?
Yeah, I'd say it's the opposite. And so if I were a business not doing something that's great in the world, I think it's harder to convince someone to move over. But I think a lot of people now are looking for more than just a paycheck. They're looking to be part of something bigger than them, to make a change in the world. And so I think by being a B Corp and this sort of business, we attract people with a really similar set of ethics. And so I think actually it's something that we kind of shout from the hilltops when we're recruiting.
And have you found it difficult to relinquish some parts of the business as well, or helpful and a relief?
Yeah, it's gosh, I don't think anyone's asked me that before. I think it is quite difficult as a founder to let go. Like, I have a really clear view of how I can see my brand evolving and how the business grows. And because of my sort of strategy background, that's like, I can see it. But actually what I've found over time is that I haven't got all the specialist skills I need. So really, like, understanding how to scale with paid ads, for example, is a real specialism that, I can't do that.
Sure.
And I'm loving bringing people in and for them to kind of take over that role. And so I'd say I'm learning, and I'm excited to keep building the team.
Do you have a sense of what kind of entrepreneur you are? I know we're still early in your journey, as well as Seep's, but are you, collaborative, data-driven, instinctive, all of the above?
I think I'm probably a bit of a mix of all of that. So I'm very collaborative, and I'd say I'm relatively hands-off once I'm comfortable. And this is the stuff I love, is talking to people about what our vision.
And it just rolls off.
And I love this bit, and I'm not particularly good at the implementing and the doing. And so those are the sorts of people that I have in the business that are really, really great at that.
And you're a mum as well.
Yeah.
How do you balance being a serial entrepreneur now with being a mum, with the demands that both of those things bring?
Yeah, I think it's always tough being a working mum, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. And I've been both, right?
Yep.
And I think I'm probably working harder than I ever have. But it's come from a place of passion. And so my kids now are 14 and 12. And I think what they can see is their mum, who really, really loves what she does. Like, I'm often quite stressed, but I love it. Like, I wish I'd done this earlier. And so I'm hoping that they see that anything is possible. Like, when I was coming through uni or whatever, no one ever talked to me about being an entrepreneur, which just wasn't a thing. And so hopefully they'll be inspired, and they watched me on Dragon's Den, right, which is kind of that was a really sort of wonderful moment.
And they're at an age as well, 14 and 12, do you say, that they sort of understand the gravity of that, rather than being 4 and 2. It'd be a bit of a novelty, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so what do you hope your children will take away from sort of seeing their mum building Seep now and into the future?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they see that their route isn't necessarily to go into a big business, big corporate, that there are other things you can build something yourself. I really hope that, like, some of my values in terms of the planet and looking after what you put in your body and making a difference in the world and wanting to be a change maker, I really hope. I mean, they've probably had that like bashed over their heads like over and over again. So hopefully they'll have some of that as well.
So tell us about your bestsellers.
Yeah, so by far and away our bestseller is our sponge scourer. So it's our alternative to those horrible greeny yellow sponge scourers that everyone knows. And so what makes ours different is that it's made from a piece of loofah, which is the scratchy bit. And loofah is a vegetable that grows on a vine. It's not a sea sponge.
It's a vegetable.
It's a vegetable, yeah. It's a gourd that grows on a vine. Lots of people think it's a sea sponge, but it's not.
Get them touching your leg on holiday on the
exactly.
beach.
And that wouldn't be very sustainable for us to be fishing out sea sponges from the ocean. But so it's a vegetable that grows on a vine, and then the bottom bit is a piece of cellulose made from wood pulp. And we stitch the two together, and then you can use it. Normally it lasts 1 to 2 months, and then you can pop it in your washing machine or your dishwasher to kind of freshen it up a little bit. And then when you're done with it, you can cut it up and put it into your food waste bin or into your compost heap at home, and it will completely break down.
Is that a bit of a challenge selling to retailers, in that it's sort of a less repeatable product than the green and yellow traditional scourer? It's going to last for, as you say, 1 or 2 months, and then people have to buy another one.
Yeah, so your repeat rate isn't as high, but most of the yellow and green sponges are bought in larger packs as well. So it's a fairly typical, so it's a repeat rate of about once every 2 months. So
biggest challenges that you've had to overcome. You're currently fundraising at the moment. How have you found that?
Yeah, it's so. I mean, we've had lots of challenges. I mean, all sorts of things have gone wrong along the way, like most entrepreneurs. I'd say one of them is getting into the retailers and getting them to take that. They're taking a risk. Putting a relatively unknown brand on their shelves. That's not been easy, but we've got there. And yes, the second one is fundraising. So. It's not, I've put in some of my own money, some friends and family have been able to support me, but actually raising larger amounts of investment is challenging in the UK, and especially if you're a female founder. So less than 2% of all capital is deployed to female founded businesses.
Less than 2%?
Less than 2%.
That is an astonishing figure, isn't it?
And actually it has gone backwards. It has gone backwards in recent years, despite all of the noise. Yeah. There's one thing that's amazing is something called the Invest in Women's Task Force that was set up a year or so ago, and so the government has just committed to deploying, I think it's £250 million, which is still a pretty, it's great and it's a step in the right direction, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to change that. Yeah.
I mean, what are the reasons for that? Perhaps this might not make it into the podcast.
I can see that you're really shocked.
I mean, that is astonishing, isn't it? 2%.
We're number 28th in the world in terms of gender parity into female-founded businesses.
I mean, if you'd have asked me, I would have said 70-30 would be pretty poor.
So it gets worse. So I can't remember the exact numbers. I know it's 2% into purely female-founded businesses. Sure. It's something like 15% is into sort of mixed founding teams, and like the balance, so 70+% is on all male teams. And there's a few reasons. There's some like sort of legitimate reasons in that a lot of the larger rounds have been in big tech businesses, but that said, there's lots of great tech female entrepreneurs. I think traditionally the money has been in the hands of men, and so the people that are deploying, whether those are LPs into GP, into funds, it's men pitching to men traditionally, and but I think over time, if we keep talking about these numbers and shining a light on them, it will change things. And there are some great stats about how much that we deliver. Like female founders in general deliver higher invested rate of return than male founders, more likely to exit than male founders. So we're more capital efficient. And I think hopefully that the tide will change. And I think
the trajectory, as you say, is disappointing and a bit despairing, isn't it? But perhaps leads quite nicely into my last question, which would be, what advice would you give somebody, especially a female founder, given what you just said, who has a purpose-driven idea but feels a bit hesitant to begin?
So the number one thing is I'd ask for help. And so I've been amazed in corporate land. You work within your business, you might have a few peers in similar businesses, but I mean, the community that's out there of female founders is just so generous. The amount of introductions I've had, tips, help, and I'd just say, there'll be so many people in your boat. So whatever challenge you found, there'll be somebody who's already solved it. A tool to a sort of new tool of a website that will help, or an intro to an investor. And so I would just say find each other. There's loads of groups around. So Female Founders Rise, C Ventures, By Women Built is a great community all about supporting female founded consumer businesses. So find others and help them and get their help in return.
Thank you so much for joining us, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We've learned a lot about Seep and challenges for female founders. Thank you for joining us too. Join us next time.
Thank Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed listening and watching. To tune in and meet our next exciting guest in the Inspired Sound series, press the follow and subscribe button. Goodbye.